Turkey is recalling its ambassador from France in response to the decision of lawmakers in Paris to pass a bill outlawing genocide denial, including the mass killing of Armenians by Ottoman Turks in 1915. If approved by the Senate, the punishment for offenders could result in a year in prison and a fine of 45,000 euros. For more on this, I'm joined live by Pierre Gerlain, a professor of political science at Paris West University. Thanks for being with us. So Ankara has been clear in its response to this bill. How do you expect the situation to escalate politically after all this?
Well, first of all, you have to realize that it's a bill going through the lower house of Parliament, and then it has to go to the Senate. Most probably, it will not go to the Senate before the presidential election, and maybe it will die out before this. So a little political game is played here by various political parties. There's the historical debate. Genocide is not in doubt. There was a genocide. And there's also the political games being played by various parties to get the Armenian vote in the French elections. So, two different phenomena. My guess is that it will probably not be adopted, the law will not be adopted before the presidential election, and it will probably die after the election, the way it happened already in 2006.
Now, with Turkey seeking EU membership and President Sarkozy not exactly a cheerleader for their inclusion in the Union, how do you assess the timing of the decision?
Well, from the point of view of Franco-Turkish relations, it's a disaster, of course. It's a political disaster, economic disaster, and so on. But the key issue now for the president, who is in a tight corner because he's led in the polls, is to ensure that he locks the Armenian vote. So the rest is secondary for him now. But of course, if you focus on politics and economics and the relationship in France and Turkey, it's extremely bad timing.
Though Armenia has the support of many parliaments and historians over the genocide, Turkey is arguing that lives were lost on both sides during World War I. Do you think past atrocities, which are viewed with conflicting historical accounts, can be accurately represented by law?
No, actually, there's quite a divide between scholars on the one hand and people who are pushing for a law. Many scholars in France, historians, philosophers, and so on, disagree with the necessity of a law. They argue that there was a genocide, but it should not be something which is imposed by law. Historical truth should not be the result of a law, and there should be no punishments for people who challenge historical truth. So two very different phenomena. From a historical point of view, you can argue there's no doubt a genocide took place, not massacres, and I think the Turks have to examine what they did. But this is also true for the French. They have to examine what they did in Algeria. This is also true for the Americans and what they did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, for the Japanese, what they did in China, for the Gulag, for the Russians, and so on. Every nation has to investigate its crimes in the past. But establishing historical truth is the work of historians. It is not something that should be done and established by law. With restrictions and freedom of speech and so on. This is all politicking and trying to get the vote of a segment of the population. There are very few Turkish voters in France, many more Armenian voters. And the law is not going to improve the lot of Armenians living today. Although historians have recognized there was a genocide. There's no need for a law for this.
So we've seen protests on the streets of Paris from the Turkish community. In a year of unrest across the Arab world, do you think the situation could trigger an even larger backlash in France?
Well, not on this particular issue. There are other issues like, austerity programs, economic issues, and so on. And the Turkish community doesn't have much political clout. So it's very different from what's happening in a place like Tunisia, for example.
All right, Pierre Gerlain, professor of political science at Paris West University. Thanks for your perspective.
You're welcome.